Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode, New Year 2018. And I don't want to see the backside of 2017, like seriously. So, moving on, my guest to start off this year is Peter Wickham, and to hold on this guy is like, I don't know, it's stress. It is absolute stress. So, Happy New Year to you, Peter,
Thank you.
and thank you for finding the time to joining
It's not
me
that easy.
on Tea Time.
Is that a difficult, Greg? What's tea time biscuits?
Yeah, no.
I will
So
find
you
the
can
time,
have
so
some
I'm
tea
happy.
time. It's going to be, it's not, as David said, it's not going to be scandal number 3. So, but we will talk about some issues, talk
Okay.
about some stuff, and
And eat some tea time.
yeah, and eat some tea times. So I want to start, Peter, with who is Peter Wickham and how did you get into politics?
Yeah, interesting reflection for me because, in life often, and I always tell younger people who are saying they don't really know what they want to do with themselves, that it happens to most of us. And if I recall, you had a fairly diverse history. I think at one point in time you were a chef.
Yeah, I was a
yeah.
pastry chef, I moved on,
Yeah.
makeup artist, trainer, designer, wardrobe stylist.
So it's diversity.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to be a lawyer. I think when I kind of like fixed my head on a career, I wanted to be a lawyer coming out of high school. And I went to community college with that intention. Somewhere along the line, I found politics fascinating. I went to community college in 1986, and it was an interesting group. Kerry Simmons, Chris Sinclair, Don Marshall, a whole lot of political people. And interestingly enough, we were being taught by Erskine Sandiford. So it was politics from beginning to end. 1986 election, the Democratic Labour Party was on the verge of a landslide. We had the People's Parliament on the steps of the Barbados Community College. It was difficult to emerge from that environment and not wanting to get into politics.
Mhm.
And logical association of politics was law. Okay, everybody who wanted to do politics did law. So
And that's the one question everyone asks, why
Yeah.
politicians are lawyers.
because
Or
it
why
is-
lawyers become politicians.
Because it's a flexible career. It's a career that allows you to put it down and pick it back up. It allows you to take copious amounts of time off from work and to work for yourself. That's the challenge with politics. When you are a politician and you are not a lawyer or you're not in self-employment, it basically means that you're tied to an employer and you can't just take up and start going around for a seat. So it was logical, and all of us studied law with the intention. I think with me, it went off the rails a bit when I applied to university and didn't get into do law. And I started to do this politics and law, which I was doing at community college and enjoying it.
Mhm.
Um,
You didn't find it boring?
I didn't find it boring. I found the politics exciting. It's just that at the time, there was really no logical employment that one could get in politics other than being a teacher. I really didn't want to be a teacher at that time. Fast forward to my leaving university with a degree in politics and law, I just thought that, I like the politics and the opportunity presented itself to do a master's. I did it. By that time, it was fairly clear that the law wasn't going to happen, and I wanted to pursue politics. But at the time, I said I'm going to pursue political science and to be a lecturer in political science, and then maybe could go into politics. It didn't work out. I guess that's how life is sometimes. But I followed what I liked more so than anything else, and ultimately I ended up as a political scientist in real terms, and ended up teaching in university, which was always a dream. But along the way, I met a guy called Pat Emanuel, and he introduced me to this polling thing. I worked along with him, and I found that interesting as well. When I came back from Trinidad and I couldn't find work, I decided, well, look, I could as well get into the polling. I resuscitated his company. He had died by that time, and the opportunity was there, so I picked it up, and I ended up in politics. And one of the things I had always said along the way that I would like if one day I could employ myself fully as a political analyst. That would be a really nice thing. But I just didn't know that it was possible. And as things worked out, I made it possible. And it's now a career that I enjoy. It's a little stressful.
That's the part, you
sometimes.
have to love what you do.
Yeah,
You
man.
should love
Yeah.
what you do.
Which you know from the different careers you've had that you love.
I just, if I get up tomorrow and I feel for something, and that's my passion, I'm creative that way, so yeah. I totally get you.
And it helps when you go to work, and I see people going to work feeling uncomfortable. I go to work happily. You know, you don't always go to work in the same country, but it's something that you enjoy doing. I mean, and there's a lot of cussing I take. I get cussing every one of, I work in 13 Caribbean territories, and I get cussing all 13. In different patois and different dialects. In this business, I either for you or against you as people are concerned. They don't understand the concept of objectivity.
Okay, someone said the volume is low. Jamar. So we will try to raise the volume a little bit. But I think it was easier for you understanding politics doing the law as well.
The law helps. I mean, the law is the basis of everything, and it is not a day that passes. Some legal principle comes back to haunt you, and it helps you to understand how our system works and why it works the way it works. So it's a good thing to do. I think it's the kind of thing that almost everyone should study at some point in time. One of my teachers of law at community college was now Justice Chandler, and he was always very inspirational. And as time has passed, there have been other people who've taught law that you remember, and it's a useful thing to have studied. And I don't think I would ever go back to a point where I actually want to do law to be a lawyer. But I find that song kind of boring now, quite frankly. But it's a good thing to have along the way. Yeah, it's a useful thing to have. Yeah.
Okay, so politics for you, in the height of your passion and where you got into it, and politics now, how different are the two scenarios or the two timelines?
I remember the first course when Erskine Sandiford introduced us to this political science course, which was very based at the time in the UK and the American system. I remember Sandy said that this is not a how-to course. So if you are coming here to understand how to be a politician, this is not the course for you.
I'll learn on the job. Yes, we don't call it learn as you go. Yeah.
So he said this, and I mean, it was very true. What he was saying, it was a course to teach us about politics and how to understand politics, but not necessarily how to do it. At the same time, most of us in there wanted to be politicians. So we figured, you're learning, you understand it, and you would actually end up being a politician in the real sense of the word. So yeah, I mean, that was the idea of doing politics, and I understood very quickly that there was a difference between the practical part of it and then also the study of it. But the fascinating thing about my path, Greg, was more so the fact that I studied it in a comparative sense and so on, which is what everybody else did. But then I was exposed to this behavioral method, which is measurement and polling and that type of thing. It was not being done at the time at the university. It's still not being done at the university, which I think is tragic, quite frankly, that you don't produce anyone who can study and analyze data and trends and that kind of thing. And yeah, that's the exciting part about it, that there are not a lot of people who do it. And ironically, a lot of the people who do it are not political scientists.
So when you put out your statistics and your polls, no one is ever 100% accurate. But when you do your analysis, how accurate are you when you put out your...
I always tell people that in terms of, you set a parameter for yourself, and just like most polling organizations, we say that we will fall within a plus or minus 5% margin in relation to a particular outcome. There was a time we would say margin of an outcome within 30 days. Now we basically say that we believe that this is consistent with what is likely to happen within a week's period, because the 30 days is changed. The dynamics of politics has changed. We have never done a poll anywhere in the Caribbean, not would, where our expectation has fallen outside of that plus or minus 5%. We use the swing heavily, and that more or less guarantees that in most instances we are falling within 1 or 2% of the swing. The last election in Barbados was one in which we fell at the 5% margin of the swing. The challenge, Greg, is that right now in elections in the Caribbean, the last few elections we have done, set aside Grenada, because Grenada was a landslide, and that was the case with Antigua. You're looking at swings that are within that range, that 5% range, and the election is decided in less than 5 percentage points, and that was the case in Barbados. So even though you say you're within that 95% confidence level, sometimes that's not enough. The election in the United States of America, a 5% margin was simply not enough because the election was that close.
Mm-hmm.
When you have these kinds of peculiarities, it's hard. And you know, I got a guy who's called me on the radio and said, well, you know, you're doing that 5%, that ain't good enough. You got to turn it up. It's not as easy as that. And people don't understand what a margin of error is. A margin of error can be accounted for in several ways. One of the ways is that people can change their mind. People can lie. One of the challenges I have is not so much what people say, but what they don't say about whether or not they will vote. And it was interesting that in 2013...
I'm just going to put a pin just because I'm going to call her out. Lisa, if you're feeling constipated, that's what laxatives are there for. So I shall move on after that.
Okay, the scandal is
If you're feeling constipated, that's what laxatives are for. So moving on.
Okay. So yes, as I was saying, yeah. No, so this is it. The margin. If you understand it, it helps you to understand why you can never be in the behavioral science. You can never be 100% accurate. I am comfortable that we have never fallen on the side of 95% accuracy, which means that your margin is 5%, give or take, and I can live with that for now. Maybe sometime along, a new enterprising political analyst with skills that I don't have will come along. I will be able to move the organization from the 5 to maybe the 3. A lot of American political analysts, pollsters, claim that they poll within a margin of 3%, and maybe we can do that eventually. But right now, I'm comfortable with it, and I'm comfortable with our track record across the region.
The word politics, you then get politician, but that word brings so much meaning. Negativity,
yeah.
Correct. How can we change that? I mean, that's something that has been built over time. So you think corruption, liar, thieving, whatever.
A lot of us do that too. A lot of it. No, but let's be frank, there are a lot of politicians that lie and thief. I remember I read an article in a book about politicians lying. It was a book about political lies. And the man started out with Bill Clinton's infamous statement, I did not have sexual
relations. That will go down in history. I did not have sexual relations.
And then they went to George Bush the first, read my lips, no more taxes, which preceded a budget in which he paid the Americans in taxes. But we got some choice ones here. Trust me, we will not send home a single worker. Months later, 3,000 on the bread line. University students will never have to pay tuition fees under this government. 10% tuition fees, $10,000, all kind of thing. Greg, it is a reality of life
But for me personally, and I want to try to remain as neutral and be the host of Tea Time and not let my views overweigh what I'm doing, getting my message across. But I find that if people are going to say that the politicians are so corrupt, but with the alleged, like Wendy Williams, the alleged buying votes.
Yeah.
And so if people actually do take money from the politicians, is it not kind of is it not, in terms of the corruption, in terms of even the word used corrupt, the persons that take the money, are they not just as guilty as the person dishing out the money? If the politicians are so corrupt to give you the money, but you are taking it.
My difficulty, honestly, Greg, a lot of emphasis is paid to, this is nice tea, incidentally, yeah?
Oh, thanks.
Taking out the gas on the beat.
So you want me constipated?
So I want me constipated. Yeah, I don't lose a lot of sleep over politicians, quote unquote, buying votes. What I think is the sad part is that there are people that are so stupid that when they take money from a politician, they actually believe they have to vote the way the politician tells them to vote.
Can I hear Angel sing?
The reality of the situation, and Greg, I have been saying it over and over and over again to people. There is no way a politician can find out whether or not you have voted for them. What they can find out...
I'm not going to take the picture.
No, like the picture, if you take a picture, you break the law. And they're not going to say to you that if I want to buy 1,000 votes, that you got 1,000 pictures. It don't work so. Right? You get money, you go and you vote. There are people who believe that they can check. What happens is that politicians can tell whether you have voted or not. And a lot of people confuse that simply because they check off a list. They presume that they can see who you voted for. But there's an interesting case going on in St. Vincent now where the opposition is actually trying to get hold of the counterfoils because they believe that some hansi-pansi went on with the Gonzales election, with one of the constituencies. And they're actually trying to convince the court to let them have access to the counterfoils to see who have voted for what. And the court is very clear that the only way you can get those counterfoils is if the counterfoil is the thing that got your name on it, right? The only way you can get it is if the court orders it, and the court is saying, we will not allow you to go on a fishing expedition because it doesn't work so. So if you can bring evidence to suggest that there's something that happened, then we can have a conversation about it. But it's not like you're going to just get them to go on a fishing expedition to just match up and whatnot. And it's the same with Barbados. We've never had a situation in Barbados where the court has ordered it. Indeed, we have never had a situation in Barbados where anyone has sought it. And the simple reality is that no politician can know who you vote. The problem, however, is that there are people who, when they hear a politician say, I know you didn't vote in the last election, they believe that it is because the politician know who you vote for, but they're not going to know who you vote for. They may have a suspicion. So my thing is that if anybody wants to take money from a politician, take it. But why would you decide that you're going to take it? And I mean, I would love a situation where a politician who has spent a lot of money paying for people to vote lose. I mean, he would feel like the biggest idiot. Because the fact of the matter is that nobody ain't going to know. Nobody ain't going to know. You go to the place like St. Kitts and Nevis, where in St. Kitts it is legitimate to have a person resident overseas and voting locally. Now this isn't a scandal. I know this guy was talking about scandal. It's not a scandal.
No.
Right? You can legitimately do it. So what the parties do is they're flying voters. To me, it's an extremely big risk you take when you put a plane ticket in somebody's hands and say, I'm flying you home to vote. Because some of them is demand, hotel accommodation, hired car, all kind of thing. And you're doing that for a vote. And then the person come home and don't vote for you.
Someone, not across the Peter, someone asked me before it goes out and I don't see, why don't we mark the X in pen? Is the pencil the norm? I don't
know that you have to use it in pencil. You can mark it in pen. I believe I voted in pen.
Pencil can be erased. That's the reason why she.
But bear in mind, when you vote in a way that's public. You fold up the ballot paper, it gets the stamp, it goes into the box. The next time that is open in the full gaze of, I mean, when you are voting and the process is supervised, and the agent for the candidate is always there. Mm-hmm. So in theory, when there is a motorcade that goes to Central Counting Station, the motorcade is usually preceded by police and whatnot, and then the candidate's representatives are supposed to be there at all times. It's very, very hard to rub out ballots and that kind of thing. So whether it's pen or pencil, it shouldn't matter because you would need to be alone with a ballot box for an extended period of time to do that. And generally speaking, election that you don't be alone with a ballot box, they start counting the moment they finish.
What about the mysterious one that appeared last minute?
I was told that there was no additional box. I took my time in that thing because I was on the radio and I mean we were looking at St. Philip South and we saying, I have to admit that the registration in St. Philip was odd, right? The actual voter registration. St. Philip had an exponential increase in voters that was significantly higher than most other constituencies in Barbados. So when I saw that registration, I thought that was odd. Now, invariably, when you see that increase in registration, it means one of two things. Either a lot of people move into St. Philip, which is entirely possible, or alternatively, people got transferred into St. Philip, as like voters were transferred from one place into St. Philip. Both of them are entirely legal and entirely possible. It was just that compared to everywhere else, what happened in St. Philip seemed odd to me. If I were the candidate, I would have asked questions. The candidate...
I really thought so too.
The candidate did not ask questions, so as far as I'm concerned, matter closed. Because I thought that it was a bit suspicious. I mean, and I looked at the registration in some other constituencies too, and it seemed unusually high. Why are people moving themselves physically to particular constituencies? And then the interesting thing about it, Greg, is that the candidates would have written these people as is their right before the election. And you got boxes and boxes of things returned about you know where they live. So the first time you show up is election day. Right? There's something strange about that. But my thing is that if the candidate was comfortable with the outcome, so be it. And I mean, we can't question it if he's comfortable with it. But it was weird to me. But he said that there was no additional box. It was just that the results had been counted and not added or something like that.
Okay. Okay, so a lot of people are saying they're not voting. For whatever their personal reasons are, I never really argue why someone should or should not vote. But my thing about how I personally see it, if you want to have an opinion about how I build my house,
You should vote.
you should come in, help me, and do something about it. After I build it, and then you don't like how I've built it, don't say anything about it.
I think it's a couple. Greg, I agree with you entirely on that. I think it's a couple. There were people who didn't vote in the last election. I did an analysis that demonstrated that it was because of non-voters that the outcome of the last election was what it was. It was not consistent with public opinion, but it was a result of the fact there were quite a few people who did not vote in the right places, and that's the outcome you get. What happened in the United States of America was exactly the same. If you look at the places where Trump was able to flip, you had a lower than normal voter turnout. And I think that that's where, as pollsters, we failed, because we were not able to accurately predict what the voter turnout was likely to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's something that I can fix, because when someone tells you they're going to vote, I don't believe that they're lying. They intend to vote. But the challenge you had election day is that a lot of people woke up election day and were saying, if you look at the results of the last two polls and the leadership stakes, people were saying, am I going to vote for Owen Arthur, who I have good reason to dislike, or am I going to vote for Frandus Stewart, who's not a particularly offensive personality, but it just doesn't seem to excite me politically. And I think that that was the decision that people came down on. And a lot of people say, best thing for me to do is start home. Especially if you believe the outcome was the one that you will have a problem with, you start home. And unfortunately, the stopping home in some instances changes the course of an election. And so for people who are not voting now, and I have spoken, just recently I spoke to a few people who were not voting, I am convinced that these people are them. The difference last time is that a person who stayed home was likely to stay home because they were not sure whether they should vote for the Owen Arthur who they knew or the Frandus Stewart who they were now getting to know. And the personality types are very different, you know, and people can dislike both for different reasons. The thing with Stewart is that I don't think that anybody thought that Stewart's inaction would have been as dangerous as it was, as it has become. And I think that we have now understood. In politics, we classify leadership when we talk about passive negative, passive positive, active negative, active positive. Donald Trump would be active negative, and he is in a class by himself. Frandus Stewart is passive negative, and he's also in a class by himself. Because I don't think we have ever had a prolonged leadership of a person that is as passive as Frandus Stewart. And we have seen the negative impact of it. Stephenson King is in that category. And thankfully, he was only Prime Minister of St. Lucia for a short time. Tilden Thomas is in that category. The Grenadians relieved themselves of him, you know, after a few years he had a shortened term. Frandus Stewart was passive negative and won an election.
No, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I've heard lots of people talk about why is it that we must automatically give someone or a government 2 terms. Mm-hmm. If you haven't done, if you're not pointing the country in the right direction within the first term, why automatically you feel you got to give them another chance to see what they can do? This whole thing, give them a chance. I mean, not just in politics, but it's almost like it's a part of us. Oh, Kadir, give him a chance. Give him a chance. See,
the Kadir concept is why Frandus Stewart won. Because a lot of people felt that, people like me, who were basically saying, look, this guy does not match up, and he should go down in history as being the first leader that did not get a second term. And a lot of people said, but Kadir, how you could do it so? And I think that the campaign that the Barbados Labour Party ran in the last election was wrong, as I reflect on it, because it was a campaign that, in a sense, helped to heap abuse on people like Frandus Stewart in a way that allowed people to say, well, Kadir. You know, and the Kadir thing is a reality. I don't see any reason why somebody, if you don't work on your first 5 years, why should they give you a second term?
And I have said this, and I've worn T-shirts with it.
A lot of people say Kadir, give you a second term.
They ran a campaign saying time for change, and I said it's time for change again. Yeah. I'm not talking about it, but I'm just saying it is so simple. People, I know people who were adamant, we gotta get rid of Owen, and this is time for change, and it was just like make America great again. That whole slogan was, for whatever reason, fueled the Americans. It worked. So all I was trying to tell people, why reinvent the wheel? Put a new coat of paint on it and let it go. Put some spinners on it and let it roll.
But Greg, maybe the Barbados Labour Party should have learned from that as well, because my feeling is that it clearly was a time for change in 2008, and I think where the BLP fell short was that they brought back the old leader, because they felt that it was not time for change, and I think that people felt it was time for change. And to me, there's a lesson in all of this. The Barbados Democratic Labour Party brought back our borough in 1986. Greg, I am convinced to this very day that it was a mistake for the Democratic Labour Party to bring our borough back after they lost in 1976. And I'm equally convinced that after the Barbados Labour Party left office in 2008, that it was a good idea to bring back Owen Arthur. So basically my thing now is, across the region in terms of my analysis, when the leader leaves, like Tillman Thomas, why would you want to bring back Tillman Thomas for? He was beaten. And if you watch the American system, if you watch the British system, they don't recycle leaders. If you lose an election, you look for something else to do with your life because you don't get a second chance. And I think that this is the way that we have to become in Barbados. We have to be merciless. You have one chance to win. If you don't win, look for somebody else. That's just the way it is. But the British political system operates like that. But we have this Kadair thing, like if somebody entitled. Can you imagine?
It really sickens me, the whole Kadair.
So my thing is, when you're looking at the condition of Barbados, no, it's Kadair. I remember Ralph Gonzalez said when he was elected in 1998 that Barbados was the best run, at the time when Arthur was Prime Minister. Easily the best run country in the Caribbean. And there was no question about that. That under the Arthur administration and indeed under the dying days of the Democratic Labour Party, before that, Barbados was well run. I think that we have now gotten to the stage where now it is easily the worst run country in the Caribbean. And I can say that without fear of contradiction.
Well, I would second you on that one.
Yeah, and it bothers me that, you know, I am doing a program in Antigua on Sunday, Big Issues. You know, and people are asking me to pass judgment on the leadership of Gaston Brown and to pass leadership on it. And everybody says, so let me hear what's going on in Barbados though. You know? I hear one of that raw sewage flowing in the street. And I'm like, Lord mercy. It's embarrassing.
No, but it is.
Embarrassing. And better can be done. Because what is needed is not a lot. It's not hard. You know, it's not hard. I personally feel if Randall Stewart made a public speech on television,
good luck on that one,
addressed the nation and said, people, we have a crisis on our hands in relation to water. What I propose to do is A, B, C. So let's ensure
some plan or some direction.
Right. I think a lot of people will say, yeah, you know, the challenge that we have is that we just drifted. We just drifted like a ship without a paddle.
No.
And then when I say that I'm being political, but I think that it has come to a point where we have to appreciate some realities. And as I look across at the leadership of Chastanet, I look across at the leadership of Holness, I look at the leadership of Gaston Brown, Gonzalez, you know, I cannot see any other leader in the Caribbean that is so distant from the job that he's doing.
From their post.
Yeah, it's special. It's special.
For me, I want change, and two persons, I'm not going to call their names because they're very close to me, but they used to tell me, so if you want change, why are you not doing anything? And so for like a year, they kept on hammering at me. So you got all these opinions about why you're not doing anything about it. One day, out of the clear blue sky, I woke up and I always had a voice. I was always vocal, but when it came to politics, I was never vocal.
You do fashion
whatever. I can speak about who look bad
cakes
and whatever and pastries. But when it comes to politics, because it's not me, I grew up in a political family, so I stayed out of it because I know how nasty it is. But if I want to incite change in any form, I have to contribute. I cannot sit there and hope for somebody to do something around me, and then if it's not being stirred the direction that I want to go in, and not say anything about it. So for all those persons who sitting down and want people to do something for them, and they're not voicing an opinion, they don't give a true feeling of how they're feeling, how can anyone know? They're not doing anything to contribute. If you're not a part of the problem, if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
But, you know, Greg, where you and I would differ, and I think that is largely because our political path is different. No, where you and I would differ is that I don't necessarily believe that there's only change can only come in one way. I believe that change can be internal or it can be external. And I've always felt that within the Democratic Labour Party, the Democratic Labour Party must be able to find somebody else to lead this country. Right? No, you have a cabinet of 20 people. And some of them are fairly, contrary to popular belief, some of them are fairly decent individuals, and some of them are fairly intelligent and knowledgeable individuals. Right? Contrary to popular belief. Within that group, you must be able to find somebody else that could do the job better than the person who's currently doing it. So I am not necessarily wedded to this idea that the only way we can get change in Barbados is if we get change in government. Because I believe the Democratic Labour Party has the power and capacity to change itself internally. I see how in the United Kingdom, right, we had a situation where they went into a referendum, the referendum was lost, and the Prime Minister said, we will have internal change. He stepped aside and allowed them to choose someone else who he felt had the confidence of the party and the people to carry it forward. They've never had that process in the Democratic Labour Party. You had the EG 11, and people don't talk about the EG 11. The EG 11 was right because there's nothing in that letter that they wrote that was wrong. Because everybody who knows Prime Minister Stewart knows that the letter was consistent with his personality. The challenge, however, was that it's one thing to say that, but it's a second thing to actually find somebody else to say, okay, we will all agree that this person can take over, right? I think that we all know who the person in there is that should be leading the Democratic Labour Party. All of us know, right? The challenge is that it's difficult to get agreement across the board that this person would do a better job than the current office holder. My sense is that if the Democratic Labour Party could get to a stage where it agreed that that individual would be a better person to lead the party into the next election, we may very well find that all of our conversation about what's going on now would change. Because the Democratic Labour Party would have demonstrated an ability to change itself. So the external change is, it seems inevitable because these guys have set a course and said, look, we're sticking with this. But my feeling is that change don't necessarily gotta come from without, it could come from within. We are seeing change now taking place in the St. Vincent Unity Labour Party, ULP and St. Vincent, where it appears as though Gonzalez is shifting power to the Sun, right? That may very well be changed, it's controversial. But over and over in the Caribbean, I've seen political parties break down over the fact that they are not prepared to make internal changes. Antigua Labour Party lost election, Lester Bird leading it. And he decides that he wants to continue and come back. St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, longest serving Prime Minister in the region, 20 years. He's faced with an internal scenario, and instead of stepping aside and saying, okay, we'll let a young guy come and take over, he said, no, I can fire the person. So what happened? The country fired him, I give that person the job. The idea of change coming from within is something that our politics is not willing to embrace, but Greg, it ain't got to be change coming from without. But my thing is that if you can't get change within, then so be it.
Agreed. Two things before I forget. I'm going to talk about this very carefully. We talk about, or a lot of people want to talk about transparency and accountability. Until someone is made an example of.
Does somebody get locked up?
You see, I was really trying to be nice about it. But if you walk until somebody get locked up, how will things change in the mindset of even anybody going into politics to try to be, and as people want to use it before, the transparency and the accountability, and no one want a thing and everything, until we set a certain example and start to lock up someone, how is it going to remain the same, the mindset of everyone, what is derived from politics, so you can get X amount of a luxury and a lifestyle from it? Or if you know that when you spend X, you can account where Y gone, then you gotta.
I hear you. Yeah. That's an issue that's more challenging than people realize. And let me start at the point where I agree with you that people think that politicians are corrupt. People think that it's time that one or two of them get locked up and that it would make a difference. The problem, Greg, is that it is extremely difficult to lock up a politician. The way that government is run, it is extremely difficult to lock up a politician, right? And I'm being frank. If you assume that most of the proceeds of crime, as you could call it in politics, it results from kickbacks, right? it is extremely hard to prove that someone has taken a kickback. So as much as we would like to see particular people getting locked up and heard on the platform, or they got a special wing in this thing that can be a special wing for the politician, it's hard to lock up a politician. And this is something that we have heard over and over again. You had this big inquiry into the St. Joseph Hospital, and they were talking about locking up somebody, but you can't really do it. Antigua Barbuda, they had an inquiry in which they identified some serious wrongdoing in relation to the final days of the administration of Lester Bird and something called the Medical Benefit Scheme, right? They identified a lot of money, and they identified, the individuals that appeared to have been siphoning it off. Both of those individuals have been re-elected. And the worst part is that the individual who has done, well, it was appeared to have done the most wrong, made an ex gratia payment to the state. In other words, he agreed that basically to just let this thing go away, he will make a payment to the state, but he wasn't forced. The O'Halloran inquiry in Trinidad and Tobago, where in the dying days of the PNL, they had a lot of teeth in, the estate of O'Halloran, who was supposed to be the main person involved in this thing, he's not the only one, again made an ex gratia payment to the state. But you don't really get to lock up people, and you don't really get to find a lot of the money. So my thing is always, let's take the New Testament and not the Old Testament road. The New Testament road tells us to turn the other cheek. You're a Bible man?
Not really, no.
Okay. Well, I know it's certainly no, it tells us to turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
And my thing is, I would prefer us to spend time, instead of trying to lock up somebody, to try to find out how we could ensure it don't happen again. So that's where I would start the whole conversation, that we should lower our expectations in relation to locking up people, because it's probably not going to happen. The other point that we have to make is that if you look at the Guyana government, where Brigadier Granger brought in a culture in Guyana that was a complete antithesis of what has always happened. Guyana has always had the reputation of being one of the more corrupt political Caribbean countries, where there is a schedule of bribes to pay the police in Guyana, right? And you will find people who get a report arguing with the police that it's not 5,000, but it's 4,000. It happens. In Barbados, I always tell people, if you try to bribe a policeman in Barbados, you will probably get locked up, right? Well, I assume so.
Yeah.
In Guyana, it's a little different.
Okay.
And it has been a problem developmentally. So Guyana is different where that type of thing is concerned for obvious historic reasons. One of the first things that Granger did when he came into office was that he increased the salaries of his ministers. He increased all of them, the salaries, I think, was about 300%. Okay? And the situation was like this. In Guyana, you could work as a receptionist at the CARICOM Secretariat and you got paid more than a minister. Receptionist at the CARICOM Secretariat got paid more than a minister. Okay? The salaries there were low in the public service. You had policemen working for the equivalent of $120 US a month. Now my question is, if a policeman is working for $120 US a month, right, or the equivalent of that, what protection do you have against him being bought and sold?
Oh dear.
Because minimum wage in Barbados is $120 US a week.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what you get for working on a minimum wage job.
I'm putting your life at risk in the protection.
And you are carrying a weapon and all that kind of thing. You got power, and that's what you're being paid. The politicians were paid slightly better, but the challenge was that the salaries were low. So Granger's thing is, look, if we're going to clean up this business, we have to make sure that people can feed and earn a living and so on politics. And Greg, that's one of the other concerns that I have in relation to the politics of Barbados. It's hard to clean up a system where the incentive is there, not there for a person who is clean to go into it. And I say to you, if you are a person who can earn a good salary outside of politics, if you're a person who can earn $1,400,000 or $1,500,000 a month, right, on your own, what's the incentive for you to go into politics? Where the moment that you get paid, they got people laying out outside your office begging for help. Not needed. And you're not being paid that well. So if we are going to clean it up, we also have to come to a stage where we are willing to say, let's pay politicians properly for two reasons. One, so that good people will be attracted to politics, right? And that the politicians will be able to make a living without having to dip in the kitty. So once you do these two things, once you understand that background, then we can start talking about the things that we need to do to clean up politics. We need transparency legislation, right? We need to be able to say to a politician, when you come back to Barbados from your travel to Sweden, I would like to see
The
the
account
receipts
of everything
that you spend to find out what is you spend taxpayers' money on. That's the kind of transparency I want to see. I want to know when Prime Minister Van der Steur went off on his travels to Australia, what it cost the state. And not from a leaked cabinet document, but I want to know details, you know, what hotel he's staying, if you fly first class, all that kind of thing. That is something that we need to have in Barbados. We need to have a higher level of transparency, not only in terms of ministerial travel, but also in terms of award of contracts and that type of thing. I also feel that we need to have state funding of political parties, because a big part of the reason why politicians get into bed with business people is because politics is so expensive, it has to be funded. It's expensive.
Yep.
And the fact is that if you
Oh dear God, Lisa, seriously?
what she said,
You know, what does Peter know about dipping in the kitty? Moving on, because I have this, see, there's kitties and then there's pussy. I can say it. Right. Okay. I personally feel that we need to have a date solidly set for election, and not sitting and waiting for a prime minister to say when election will be called.
I support that. And UK has changed now. They have a fixed date system, although it can be varied in under certain circumstances. Cayman Islands, they have a fixed date system. I like the certainty of a fixed date system. And I feel that
It brings structure.
it brings structure, yeah. You know, it brings structure, and it ensures that you don't have any doubts about it. And it's a new way of doing things. The Americans have done it. I think the Australians are moving in that direction, and certainly I think we should. So I'm with you on that 100%.
Then, two other things. So, this is purely hypothetical. People have been having conversations with me and say, God bless him, if David Thompson was still alive, they personally don't feel that we'd be this bad if he was still alive.
You don't think so, neither?
I don't think so either. I mean, I am so serious. I mean, it's purely hypothetical, but I honestly,
You know why-
I really don't feel so
You know why I
either.
say so, Greg? I say so for two reasons. One is I had a lot of respect for David Thompson. David Thompson and I disagreed on one thing, which is immigration. Okay?
Oh.
And I have always had strong views on immigration that he did not share, and the Democratic Labour Party did not share. But other than that, I did agree with him a lot. And I think David Thompson would have done and steered the ship. He would have steered the ship, quite frankly, because the ship is not being steered now. The ship is drifting. And I feel so, yeah. The other reason I feel so is because you will go a lot hard to find a leader in the Caribbean that would be comfortable allowing his ship to go adrift for as long as this ship has gone adrift. You go a lot long and hard, right? Even some pretty bad leaders would have taken control of the wheel of this ship by now. It sounds harsh, but that is it. That is it. You will go a lot long and hard to find someone who can lay down and sleep comfortably at night knowing that you have raw sewage flowing in.
I mean, it's not just flowing, you're walking through it. I mean, it is ridiculous.
In slippers and the tiptoeing and stepping. And I say to myself, these people really know they get us out.
My best friend said she could not believe seeing the tourists come here. You come into a Caribbean island, so you're going to wear your little flip-flops, your cute little sandals with this much base, and you do not know what you're walking through. Heaven forbid you have a cut, some sore, some open wound, something on your foot, and you just walk through that. And even if you don't clean your feet when you get home, it's still on your slipper.
Imagine
So
you get home, you put out your feet on the sofa. Or you put your feet. That's what we just sit down, put the feet underneath them. I suppose you got some kinky people like into
Oh, dear God.
sucking toes and that kind of nonsense. I mean, that's nonsense because
Yeah. Let's be careful because Lisa watching. Yeah. She knows she might be kinky.
It's yeah. I mean, and you know, I don't judge if that's what your thing is. That's fine, but I don't know that you want to be getting into that kind of thing after having walked.
But I mean, it's just ridiculous to know that this is where our island has
it's
deteriorated. And I put a post here the other day. I've just upgraded Dodge a Pothole 4.0. So you can now upgrade to your Samsung and Apple iPhone, because Dodge a Pothole is a serious game. Like,
Like
The dexterity test, I mean, we should all be some serious drivers.
Yeah.
The dexterity, because you try to swerve off the pothole, you got the oncoming car. So you got to watch the car and still watch the other pothole that waiting for you when you get back into your lane. It is ridiculous. How did we get here?
You know why I don't see the pothole issue as being as bad as that? I think that this issue with our sanitation and our health is ground zero.
No, I would agree.
To me, everything else, this trumps a lot of that stuff because of the potential for harm to our tourism and potential harm for our nation. And it reminds me of when Ronald Reagan made the declaration in the 1980s that, you know, AIDS was not a problem. AIDS was a problem for gay people. It was not a problem for everybody. Right? So it's like saying, no, that thing on the South Coast is a problem for South Coast. It is a national crisis. And for me, the pothole thing, no, you know, everything pales.
But that was the problem at that problem.
Yeah,
no, this had precedence over everything. And I told you because we are a tourist destination. Tourism is still our mandate, even though the Sunset and Sand need to be revised. But that is what we are selling, no matter what. We want people to come here to spend money, to enjoy the island, a nice, clean, shit-free, pothole-free island.
And it's like I'm trying to work out whether it's better to warn people coming on tourists and say, when you come to Barbados, avoid the South Coast, or tell them when you come to Barbados, make sure you wear
enclosed shoes.
Enclosed shoes, so you got it South Coast.
But even though you're making fun of it, even though you're laughing, but it is like stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. Do you warn them and then they're completely turned off and then they don't come?
Do
you call the bluff when they get here? They still manage to, they realize to stay away, but they still enjoy the rest of the island. At least they're here. So it is really weird, and especially if you're staying somewhere near that problem.
Like if you want to have dinner at Tapas.
And we have I personally, from a chef background, I went to, and I'm not calling out Lucky Horseshoe saying that there's a problem why they're still open, but with Chicken Barn closing down next door, I walked into Lucky Horseshoe and I smelled that aroma from.
You don't want it.
I was completely turned off from eating. So there was nothing. So the guy said, "Y'all want the fish cakes?" And I was like, "Oh God, no, please. Anything wrong with them with the balls, please don't." don't bring it.
Don't see why you women say that this program scandalous.
I was like, "Oh hell no!" Like seriously. But it is sad to see an island that I loved and I respected and used to tell the world you gotta come here, to see that we've deteriorated. And no matter who government is in, it is that government's responsibility to deal with it. So don't be telling me that this was a problem from the last administration. I don't care about it being a problem from the last administration. So even if it was, hypothetically, even if it was, you are here to now deal with it. 10 years, you still haven't dealt with it. So why are you going to continue to say that this was a problem from the last administration? I am sick of this blame game of yesteryear. So you go into a marriage and you have problems with your marriage, but the problems from your ex.
You're married?
Hell no. Please don't be giving Lisa any ammunition.
Let me say for the record, I'm not either.
Don't be giving Lisa any ammunition, please. But no, I mean, you got to decide you're going to carry that baggage over into relationship, or you will leave it because that was from the past.
It's a political immaturity. It's a sign of political immaturity that we have. Because the BLP has done it in the past too. And I know that for the first year of a BLP administration, if they're successful in winning, they'll be telling us that every problem that is there is the cause of the last administration. And I agree that to some extent a lot of it would be. The challenge is that the excuse we're still after 10 years. We're still after 5, quite frankly. And after 10 years, it's hard to talk about the fact that, you know, the South Coast sewage problem was badly constructed and all that kind of thing. You know, you need to be able to get past that. But we have allowed politicians to continue to say this and use this excuse. You know, I've been hearing Chris talk about this prison, you know, that me and Bill. And it comes up every budget, it comes up every estimates debate, and you know, it comes up and he talks about this prison, you know, and I'm like, prison is 10 years old, you know, get past it. If it is that the president had issues, that's the reason why me and Martin sitting on the opposition along with Wynath and everybody else in the cabinet. But, you know, let's understand that right now we are having other pressing issues that we really want to know about. So don't tell me about no prison. You know, it's a sign of political immaturity. You know?
Okay, what are your predictions for the next election?
I thought it was obvious.
But you know what? Did you at any point, being a political analyst, feel that Trump would not win?
I didn't. No, I thought he would. I thought that Trump would lose, largely because I had a lot of confidence in the voting public in the United States of America. In the same way that in the last election, I was fairly sure in Barbados that the Democratic Labour Party would have lost. What I have learned from that is that I can make a prediction based on my expectations, based on what is there, but I also have a lot to learn about politics. So one of the things I learned in the 2013 election is that I could actually get to the outside line of my prediction, my swing prediction. I never thought it was before, so I could get to the extent of a margin of error. Before, it never happened, but it could happen. So what I would say that this time around is, while I have every confidence that the Democratic Labour Party will lose based on the statistical data that I am seeing now, I also would not be surprised if they won, because it is entirely possible that they could win.
I know.
Because these are some strange nights. These days are some strange nights.
Peter, I am sorry, and I'm going to say it publicly, and I've said it more than once. That scares the bejeebers out of me.
But there's life, and that's the reason why the voters of Barbados have to understand that you can't say that either you stop at home or you go and you expect manna to fall from heaven. The reality of the situation is that we could very well wake up under a Fernando Stewart administration after the election. It could happen. And people got to understand that it's not entirely impossible, not because I say it ain't likely to happen, because clearly I'm not God.
Exactly.
Right? And it is entirely possible. So I do feel that people, when they go to vote next time, they have to.
You know what? Push pause. I am going to try my hardest to be as professional as I can be. But Lisa, if you don't want me to publicly block you, like seriously, there's a line, do not cross with me. This 2018, right? Don't cross that line with me. That is my first and public warning to you. Seriously, don't cross that line with me at all. Moving on. Anyhow, move on. I would deal with her after I deal with this. Yeah.
Hey, anyhow, we were talking about winning and losing. So it's possible. But I think that we have to be mature as voters and say, look, we want to vote towards an outcome. But it's entirely possible. I met Fernando Stewart in politics in 98, 99. I think he ran for the first time in 94. He was beaten in 99 along with several other Dems. We were polling in 99, and at that time no one suggested that Fernando Stewart should leave the Democratic Labour Party as an option. We polled in 2003, and in 2003 no one suggested that Fernando Stewart should, not a single person said Fernando Stewart should be potential leader. Then in 2008, when we did polling again and we asked people about leadership, I think that Hamilton last year, Jesus Christ came in terms of the ranking before Fernando Stewart. The first time that anyone ever mentioned his name as a leader was when he was acting Prime Minister. And that says a lot to me, because if you ask me who would be Prime Minister after David Thompson, I would not have thought of Fernando Stewart.
No one.
So my thing is that if it is that even after that expectation, he can win and become Prime Minister, and not only become Prime Minister on the choice of others, but win an election, anything is possible. And I think it's against that background that people have to say, you know what, don't concern themselves with Peter Wickham predictions. You have to concern yourself with what you as a voter want to do, because some strange things is happening in politics.
Which is my point. If you want to bring any change in any government, or most governments will not always make the right decisions as far as people are concerned, but they're making a decision to do something which they feel is right to steer the country in the right direction. You are not going to please every single representative or every person on that island or that continent, but as long as you're going in, if you're inching along and you're still going somewhere and it's getting something done, I figure it's the right direction. But I think that people are also looking for a miracle to happen if mayor gets in. Or let me speak about it, eventually gets in. They're looking for a miracle, but I said we did not get to this point overnight. So getting us out of the situation also is not going to happen overnight.
Greg, I understand that, you understand that, and I hope that Barbadians understand that. And I can tell you, I hope that if Mia wins the next election, that she has an extremely high energy level and she has a strong intestinal fortitude, because all of us got a lot of work to do to bring this country back from where it is now. Me, you, everybody else in Barbados, we got to work hard.
But it's all of us. It's not
People
just...
who are retired may find themselves having to go back out to work because we got things that we need to do as a country. So I get that, and I get that it is going to take us probably 50 years to dig ourselves out of this hole.
Someone actually said to me 15 to 20 years. 15 to 20 years.
To dig ourselves out of this hole. And I hope that people understand the nature of it and the extent to which it's going to be a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifice. And you know, the job starts on day one. So I can tell you that I'm going to be reminding people, if there's a change of government, that, you know, they're going to be a long time before things can be fixed. But what I can tell you is that one of the things I'm committed to, Greg, is I'm committed to not only changing necessarily a government. That's not part of my commitment. But my commitment is to us changing the way that we do business as a country. Because we have some ridiculous scenarios where you hear on Tea Time having some interesting conversations, right? I did Farai's program with him the other day, and those guys have some interesting ideas. You have all of this energy, and there's nowhere to channel it, because there is no way that I can get like Proposition 18 to decriminalize ganja. You know, there's a strong ganja lobby in Barbados. Majority of people in Barbados don't want to see it decriminalized, but there's no way I can get that onto the statute books. And that should be the case, because there should be a facility where I can take an initiative to the public, and if I get enough signatures, like happens in California. Right now, California has started ganja, legal ganja sales, simply because a majority of people signed a petition, they took it to the governor, it had to be voted on, it gets onto the ballot, people vote in favor of it, and there you go from there. We don't have that in Barbados, and we need that. That's the kind of change I'm committed to. I'm committed to having a discussion and a conversation about empowering all of the people, the Greg Williams of this world, of this country, you know, the Farais of this country, even the you know, some of the more decadent people who offer ideas and stuff like that. I feel should be empowered in some way to have ideas brought to the table and be able to say, you know, this is what we want to do. But we need constitutional change for that. And I'm hoping that this experience would have taught us enough that when we go to people, or when people are given the opportunity to have serious conversations about constitutional change, that we would take it seriously and say, look, we need to have integrity legislation, we need to have Freedom of Information Act, we need to have all of these things going. And a part of it is also that we need to have fora for public discussion, meaningful public conversation as well.
Okay. That was an absolute mouthful. I mean, I hope that the viewers out there who will watch, who have watched and still watching, will understand that this is something we all have to play our part in creating a better Barbados. And even though a lot of people want it through the government for certain reasons, but if we all don't do our part, then it's pointless. Change starts with home. And if you're not doing anything to even change your own environment, but you want somebody to deal sign out or come and change yours, ain't gonna happen. So, Peter, thank you very much for joining. Is there anything you'd like to tell when it comes to voting? Before we go, is there anything you'd like to tell the viewers when it comes to voting?
Basically, I think that it is a responsibility that we should take seriously, and I really feel the one message I want to leave to people is that they can vote. You can vote freely and fairly. No one should influence your vote. You can't be, if someone gives you money, there's no reason to believe that you have to vote for them. So my thing is, make sure we go and vote, and your vote is private. I think those are the two messages I would want to leave with your community, that you should engage, you should vote, and nobody can know who you vote for. So that more than anything else. And also, well, I think we need to use this experience that we have had over the last 5 to 10 years as an indication that we need to start to do things differently in Barbados, and let's ensure that we don't walk this road again, especially on the South Coast. And then if we do so,
walk our drive,
make sure you're wearing closed shoes, roll your windows. Yeah. But Greg,
oh
thanks.
God, no problem. Thank you. No, it's good having you, Peter. Thank you. So this has been Tea Time with Peter Wickham, and I'm starting 2018 with a bang. And stay tuned for more from Tea Time. And so on Saturdays, I will be having happy hour with Sherry-Ann Moore, and that will be 7 to 8. Yes. That's my girl.
My one girl, man.
So, right. So Saturdays from Brady's Bar, we'll be having happy hour with Sherry-Ann, and that's all about Barbadiana stuff. So that's another program that I'm looking forward to as well. So once again, this is Tea Time with Greg. Thank you for joining me. Happy New Year to everyone, and let us have a beautiful year with a new government.
Not me.
Thank you.